We've been talking a lot about change on this podcast recently, and I have been making changes, as you can see, as you could tell, as I've told you about. But the point of change, the way to embrace change, the way to make it work for you, is you have to take risk. That's right. You have to be willing to take risk. I'm doing it. You can do it too. Let's talk about it. Not just talking the talk. Let's walk the walk. Let's understand how risk and change go hand in hand with growth and success. On the podcast today, it's Saturday. We're in the office. This is the Saturday One Hustle, the podcast for anyone willing to come in early, stay late, or work on the weekends in order to achieve what it is they need, want, and have to be successful. That's right. The podcast today, we're going to talk continuation of our change conversation, but we're going to focus on risk, taking good, smart, calculated risk. I'm going to tell you my story of how we changed the setup here in the studio because we changed the office because of some decisions that we made on the business side. We took a risk, reward that we expect from it, etc. So I'm going to run you down through my professional history the last 11 years with my business, starting my first business. No, not my first business, starting my current business. I've had multiple businesses over the last 35 years. My current business, the Golding Group, my strategic planning, business process development, collaborative, think tank, consulting firm, if you will. We started that business in 2011. In fact, in November of 2011. So this month will be our 11th anniversary. That's right. We started that business when I took the risk of walking away from my last corporate job. Hopefully for me, my last corporate job ever. But at the time, I really thought definitely my last corporate job because things just did not work out the way they were supposed to. I hooked up with two friends of mine, Felicity and Sean. We had been talking about another project that didn't work out. We came together to put the Golden Group together, and I intentionally took another risk. I had been doing corporate marketing. I've been working in marketing since 2000. 85 to 2000 was in the music industry, but doing marketing and promotions in the music industry. Felicity was not a marketing person. She was an attorney who had gotten into emerging technology. Sean was a systems guy, big corporate systems guy. And the three of us had very different skill sets. I took a risk. I had freelanced before. I had clients on the side hustles, things of that nature when I was working corporate. So that was one of the ways we launched the Golden Group. But I definitely took a risk by not intentionally not being a marketing agency, a PR firm, an ad agency. I thought there were too many of those in the world already, and I didn't like their business model. I wanted to do something intentionally different. That's taking a risk, but I calculated a smart risk. I took on partners that were very different than me in order to force me away from falling into the bad habit of just doing advertising, PR, and traditional marketing, which is now paying off because that industry has changed so much over the last 11 years or so. So that was the first risk that we took. We were working essentially off our kitchen table. We were Felicity and Sean's kitchen table is where we launched the brand. We launched the business. I had the first client already on day one. You guys have heard that story before too. I went back to some other people I was working with to get clients 2 and 3. Felicity and Sean made some connections and brought in other clients for us as well. But we were working from home. We were being smart about it, but we needed to put ourselves out there to establish ourselves, to create not just the impression, but the reality of what we were doing was a real thing and not just 3 people talking about something. That's how we ended up getting our office at 1219 Creative, working with Rick and Tracy Bewley, who own the building. And you've heard that conversation before too. If not, go check out 1219creative.com. All the backstory is there as well. But we took the risk of taking on rent, of taking on a lease, of taking on 600 square feet between 3 people. Oh, think about that. A lot of space, but that's what we needed to do in order to help Rick and Tracy and get the 1219 space up off the ground because we were the first people in there. There was also the art gallery and other collaborations we wanted to do in that space. We wanted to bring co-working to Oklahoma City, the first to do that. We wanted to utilize the art space up front, the art gallery on a main thoroughfare on Classen Boulevard, to bring attention to the space. We wanted to collaborate with, again, non-marketing people. We want to collaborate with artists, with musicians, with community activists, with people who just had energy and ideas and were doing new and different things, and not a traditional marketing firm. All risk that paid off, all very specific risk with specific outcomes in mind. So we took the risk and it changed everything. Once we opened up the office at 1219 Creative, we were on the map. People knew we were serious. They were coming to our space. They were engaging us. We had energy. People could find us. They could interact with us. They collaborate with us. We continually created new partners, whether it was the artists that were coming, the people that were supporting the artists for the art gallery, people who were getting offices, people that were co-working. Everyone who started at a desk at co-working in that space eventually got an office there. Everyone with an office started at a co-working space. The exact way that's supposed to work. And again, we were one of the first people to do co-working, again, 11 years ago. It's very common now, not as common then. We took risk. We took a part of the building and dedicated it to an art gallery. We made no money off that art gallery. There was no financial ROI on the art gallery outside of the energy, the attention, the attraction, the traffic that we created with putting the time and effort into having events in that space and promoting those events and working with partners, etc. And again, not thinking about dollars and cents in ROI, thinking about establishing our name, establishing our brand, reputation, collaboration partners, etc. We also dedicated a part of the building that could have been an office that someone paid a monthly for co-working desks that people were paying hourly or daily or weekly. And that worked out. We had people, again, who started there once 1 hour a month, 1 hour a week, 1 hour a day, 1 week a month, 4 weeks a month, eventually up to getting their own offices. The model worked of helping people get started, get launched, and move on to an office, which then they had to take the risk of signing a lease themselves. They took risk. We took risk. All of those risks paid off because they were calculated smart risk. Then came along the opportunity for us to facilitate a very specific client in Philadelphia, essentially opening the Philadelphia office. Felicity and Sean were right up for it. Their background is East Coast. They were ready to do it, but it was a risk for them to go, leave Oklahoma, take the family, and dedicate themselves to that particular client, to that project, to that thing that we were trying to do, which actually in the long run didn't work out the way we all thought it would. Worked out well, worked out great, worked out the way it needed to, but it didn't work out the way we expected it to. Took risk. They took the risk. They both moved out there. I stayed here, but I took a risk on losing my partners here, that I'd developed a system that we had things that we could rely on for each other. I had to take on more responsibility. And ultimately, eventually, we took on another partner, Pritchard, a few years later. Again, if you guys are not familiar with all my partners and everything else, go to thegoldengroup.com. All the history is there as well. But we made changes because we had to take risk. We had to take risk because we had to grow. We had to grow. We grew by making changes and managing those changes so that we got the outcomes we were looking for. And this is the difference between taking wild risks, just doing random stuff, just sort of being a jackass, if you will. You know, those guys who film themselves doing stupid stuff and hurt themselves all the time. We're not trying to hurt ourselves. We were not trying to lose money, but we were taking smart, calculated risk with expected outcomes. But outside the norm, because we stay inside the norm, you stay inside your comfort zone, nothing great happens there. You might make a couple of bucks. You might be a little bit successful, but you won't be great. You won't grow. You won't develop, and you won't own what it is you do unless you can take some risk, but be smart about it. So eventually we were forced to move out of 1219 Creative. You guys know this story as well. We ended up at Project 3810. We were the first people to move into Project 3810. We took the risk. It was not an established place. It was new, but it gave us an opportunity. We took the opportunity to collaborate with new, different partners. And again, that worked out well until we got to a point where we had presented the current opportunity. This is why the podcast studios changed. This is why our office is currently moved. We're now working out of the Better Business Bureau of Central Oklahoma. We're downtown. There's some opportunities to collaborate with the BBB. They're clients of ours for a long time. We're doing some collaboration with them. We are offered as a business space in downtown Oklahoma City with all the benefits that come with it, plus a podcast studio that we could utilize because this is so important to us. So it's a risk, but a calculated, smart risk. We took a smaller space. Back up even further than that. The 1219 creative space was 600 square feet. It was huge. Then we took a space half that size when we moved to Project 3810. It wasn't really our idea. We kind of lost our lease at 1219, and that's a whole other thing with lawyers involved. We won't talk about that today. But now we're even working out of a smaller space at the BBB. But John and Felicity are still in Philadelphia. They're still doing their thing there. Pritch is trying to stay retired. He's been retired from the University of Oklahoma, and he was supposed to be working full-time for us. He decides he wanted to retire, maybe work less. There's a lot more remote work that's happening. There's a lot more remote meetings we have with clients. There's a lot different scenarios than the space we had before this and the space we had before that, and before anyone was doing business before 2011, before 2010, before 2000, before 1980. All of those different times, different situations require different space, different access, different facilities than they do in 2022. And as we look forward to 2023 and moving on, a smaller space that's more flexible, more adaptable, in a better location, more central, more maybe set up with better, different technology, having still access to a podcast studio, we're able to do things where we can invite people in and have other facilities around us we didn't have at Project 3810, is why we made the move to a smaller but more effective for our situation space in 2022, and of course then into 2023, because we're almost there. It's almost the end of the year, right? So all of these things came together to provide us different opportunities and different lessons. So here's the takeaway. Here's what anyone can take away from all this. Obviously, your situation is going to not be exactly the same as ours, but if you think about it like this, if you have an attitude like this, you have the potential to really do something. So put yourself out there. Announce yourself to the world. Take the risk. Own the risk. We did it. You can too. But within reason. It's smart risk. It's not insane risk. It's not just doing things just to do things. And it's definitely not doing things so big before it's necessary, or doing things just to do it. Do your research. Do your thought process. Create your system for making your decision as to should you do this or not. Will it work out for you? Will it be beneficial? Can it work out? Do you have a specific outcome in mind? For us, being downtown, collaboration, new opportunities. These are things we were thinking about when we moved the space downtown to the BBB. Have a thought process as to how the risk you take will pay off and can pay off. It typically doesn't work out exactly the way you planned it, but if it works out well, if it puts you in the right position, if it moves you forward, if it gets you where you need to be in 2023, in 2025, and 2030, then you're on the right road. You're taking the right risk. When you take the right risk, you create opportunities. The way you manage those opportunities, how you grow and become successful. That is the key. So risk is the follow-up to the conversation we've been having about change. What else is going to change? Well, pretty soon we'll be coming up on episode 300 of the Starting One Hustle podcast, and there'll be some changes coming right after that. That will be 1 week before my birthday, 2 weeks before Christmas, and 3 weeks before New Year's. You know, at New Year's, everything changes. Change is coming to this podcast as well. So we're in the new studio today, the new setup. It's going to change probably next week. It'll change a couple more times. Episode 300, everything changes again. Take that risk, put yourself out there, and be rewarded. Risk, reward, success. Change is beneficial if you manage it correctly. Thanks for listening. Make sure you should stream, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a review, share with a friend. I really appreciate it very much. Get your Starting One Hustle, Entrepreneur AF, Coffee and Donuts, swag, and follow Engage on social media, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, the Facebook fan page as well. Don't miss the bonus episode, either the bonus series, the Balance bonus content series of Starting One Hustle. Right now, the topic is, are you the smartest person in the room, or are you in the wrong room? How do you balance being the smartest person in the room without always being the smartest person in the room? It's interesting. Go check that out as well. Everything, all past info, all past episodes, all information, all the swag, all the bonus content, everything is at SaturdayMorningHustle.com. You can find it all there. Until next week, when we talk about what's different once again. Saturday.